All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this week's Snack and Chat. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I was having a technical challenge between Facebook and Zoom, but we're all back in business. So thanks again for joining us live. Adopt for Life's weekly Facebook Live, where we explore the topics that are top of mind for families formed by adoption, kinship, and customary care. Today, my guests are Clayo Laanemets and Jane McCarthy of the Ontario Caregiver Organization. And for those that are new here, my name is Chantal, Community Engagement Liaison with Adopt for Life. Before we start our Q&A session, I would first like us to pause to acknowledge the lands that we are situated on today. I myself reside on unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations, and as a first step towards improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures, to recognize and acknowledge the historic and ongoing devastating effects of colonialism and racism in the name of assimilation across Canada, and to consider how we are and can each in our own way action forward in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. So whether you're watching live right now, maybe you're watching this later on replay, I want to thank you out there for taking the time to be with us, to ask your questions and add your comments to the conversation. I will take a moment to remind you that it is a live stream on our public Facebook page. So anything that you're sharing in the comments is going to be available to the public. So if you are asking a question about someone you are caring for, we do ask you not to put any identifiable information like names and health information and things like that when discussing those people. So just keep that in mind. We do love to hear from you, and we hope that you find this conversation informative and engaging. I know that I'm looking forward to it. Before we jump in, I will introduce our guests. So Clayo is the Program Lead for Mental Health and Wellbeing at the Ontario Caregiver Organization, where she currently manages various programs that support caregiver mental health. Her work efforts are focused on developing and implementing innovative programs and services for vulnerable populations, such as developing and implementing a caregiver coaching program for caregivers in distress. Clayo is passionate about reducing system barriers for caregivers and their families affected by mental health and addiction. And Jane McCarthy, in her role as Director, Programs and Services, oversees the planning, development, and implementation of an array of programs and resources aimed at educating and supporting unpaid caregivers in Ontario. And prior to joining OCO in 2019, her 25+ year career includes working in a variety of roles for organizations such as the William Osler Health System, Parent Action on Drugs, the Central Brampton Family Health Team, and the ALS Society of Canada, the ALS Association, HealthNet of California, and the Hemophilia Council of California. Whether the role was as director, program manager, health educator, or patient navigator, Jane put her health sciences and public health knowledge and skills to work to understand needs and work towards solutions to improve the well-being of communities, groups, and individuals. So thank you both so much for giving up your lunch hour and joining me on Snack and Chat. I really appreciate that. So welcome to you both. So I thought we could just start, just right at the beginning, to introduce the OCO to our community, parents and caregivers that might not have heard of you. So tell us about yourselves, your organization, how long it's been running, and where it all started. So I'll pass that over to you, Jane.
Sure. Thank you, Chantal, and thanks for having both Clayo and I here today. It's our pleasure to introduce people about OCO who may be unfamiliar with us. So thanks for joining. Yes, OCO, or Ontario Caregiver Organization, we're an independent nonprofit. We're funded by the Ministry of Health of Ontario, and we were established in the spring of 2018. So we're a new organization. Our mission is to improve the lives of Ontario caregivers. And it's estimated that there are about 4 million people in the province who would be defined as a caregiver, which is an ordinary person providing physical or emotional support to a family member, a friend, a partner, or a neighbor. And OCO was started because while these unpaid caregivers who play a significant role in the delivery of healthcare had no province-wide organization dedicated to addressing their needs for information, education, and support.
Yeah, excellent, because these things are just, they're sometimes just a natural relationship that occurs, whether it's, like you said, through family or neighbors or just through community. And to have your organization, you know, be their voice and advocate on their behalf it's obviously much needed when you, especially when you quote those numbers, right? Like 4 million. So let's jump from there and share, you know, like your why. I mean, we can see why those numbers, why it's so important, but let's dig into it further. Like, why is this, why does this organization need to exist, and why it's so important for caregivers?
Sure. And I'd just like to address that we're not an advocacy organization in terms of big A advocacy, in terms of legislative advocacy, but we certainly do, you know, collaborate with caregivers, hear their voices, and try to amplify their voices when we do sit at tables of those who are policymakers or people in those roles that can make a difference at that level. So, so we like to say we advocate for caregivers, small a. And, but yeah, I mean, caregivers really can benefit from having one point of access to the information that they need to be successful in their role. So that was really the primary reason for being. And we do that, and we do provide that. And in many times, caregivers also feel, you know, anxious or very overwhelmed by their responsibilities. And that's where we come into by offering various programs, services, and resources that can address their information, education, and support needs, and help people feel that they're not alone in this journey, and also help assist people to learn how to take care of themselves while they take care of others.
Yeah, amazing, important. We just had a comment saying that they know more and more caregivers, and it seems like it's a growing population.
Yeah, and it may be growing also because people are now identifying themselves as a caregiver, whereas before they maybe said, oh, well, I'm just a parent, I'm just a neighbor who wouldn't do this, you know. So it's really part of our role too, from a public awareness perspective, is to assist with people identifying themselves as caregivers, so that you know, they can then reach out to an organization like us.
Great. So let's talk more about the supports that you offer for caregivers. And within that, like specific to, so in general, the supports you offer, and then specific to our community, would you say that there are resources or supports aimed for adoptive parents or kinship or customary caregivers?
Well, yeah, we offer a variety of resources and supports. So I'd like to sort of categorize them as information, education, and support. And while we did do a webinar a while back in February with Adopt for Life, we collaborated on a webinar. So we do have a recording that folks may want to revisit that would be particular to your client base. But our approach is also to be broad reaching, so that it could be relevant to any kind of caregiver, not necessarily those with a certain situation or a certain type of care recipient. So in that regard, I still think, though, your clients, your adoptive parents, kin, and customary caregivers would still find what we have available to them to be quite relevant. So yeah, just to review the kinds of supports that we do have. In terms of information, firstly, we have a fantastic website that's loaded with info, downloadable resources and tools, and connections to the other things that we do. We have a secondary website called youngcaregiversconnect.ca, which is designed specifically for caregivers in the 15 to 25-year age band. And there's also an online community there for them to share information with one another. And then we also have a 24/7 caregiver helpline, which is a toll-free number that runs 24/7. So that connects people to community resource specialists that will help you find the information you might need at the community level. And there's also an online chat option as well through our website. Regarding
24/7 too? Sorry.
Actually, the chat is a little limited. It's more 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay, so it's the number that's 24/7.
Yes, yes. And it's available in multiple languages, like they can connect you to some interpretation services, but for sure English and French. And then regarding education programming, we offer 1 to 2 webinars a month, live webinars on a variety of topics. For people that have missed them or can't attend future ones, we have everything recorded and just keep adding it to our webinar library, which is accessible through our website. And we also have an e-learning library. So it's called the Oco Learning Library. So it's a learning management system that people can access either directly or through our website. And we have a variety of courses there, which are free. People can register, start a course. If they only have a few minutes, they can come back to it. So it's not instructor led. It's very flexible. And so I'd like to promote that. And then when we get into a program called Scale, which Clayo is going to talk a little bit more about, that also has an education as well as a support focus around caregivers promoting their own mental well-being. In terms of direct support, we provide online peer support groups, which are facilitated by a caregiver, someone who is either currently or a past caregiver who's been trained to facilitate the groups. We have 6. One of them is French language now. So encourage anyone looking for that to check us out. And we also have a 1-to-1 peer mentor matching program where you can speak by telephone to a peer mentor that you select, and that can last, up to 6 months, sometimes longer if necessary. So that's those 2 peer programs offer the direct support. And we also have something coming soon called the 90-Second Caregiver, which is a weekly e-bulletin, e-newsletter that is targeting caregivers' issues that relate to caregiving and provide some, tips on health promotion, action-oriented links to various resources that we have available as well. So watch for that too.
Well, it sounds like you're certainly busy, because you certainly are rich in services and programming. And even I, when I was preparing for our chat, I spent some time on your website. So I posted the link in the chat, and I would definitely encourage people to go and really just spend some time there, because there's a lot, a lot on offer for sure.
Yeah, we're always adding something.
So when you mentioned your webinars and the peer support is over the phone or in the chat, has this always been the way that the OCO was set up, or is this a shift that happened over the pandemic? How did was there pivots that happened for you? And I mean, for many organizations that I asked this about, there's always a barrier, but there's also seems to be a positive in the sense of being able to reach more people. So is that something you agree with?
Yeah, well, in fact, because we were so new, we really didn't start offering anything until like our helpline in very late fall 2019. And then we started with our programming for webinars and that sort of thing in the winter of 2019. So we really didn't, sorry, 2020. So we were really starting on the cusp of the pandemic taking hold. And we don't really have, this track record pre-pandemic to compare to. However, what it did enable us to do probably faster and sooner than we would have was implement our online support groups. We were going to do that, but with the pandemic happening, we did it a lot faster than we had originally planned. So that was, a positive, that we were able to provide that type of caregiver support, addressing that sense of isolation, especially because of the pandemic, amplifying that level of isolation, and and providing people a place to come and share their caregiving related challenges and feel that sense of connection. So that was a positive. We do have staff in our organization. They're called regional leads, and they go out and do community presentations to increase the awareness about OCO, what we have to offer to folks, as well as some content specific educational presentations. And that really got cut off. They really weren't. So that in-person connection with OCO, there was certainly a barrier for that. But with technology now, all of that moved online. And as a provincially funded organization, and our mandate is to reach, caregivers in all corners of the province, we really were set up to be primarily a virtual service and education delivery organization. So while it didn't really inhibit us, it did promote us and motivate us to do certain things more quickly.
Yeah. I just, I hadn't had it in my head that the organization started in 2018. So of course you were like right there.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So we want to sort of dive into this, like you mentioned, Jane, the SCALE program, supporting caregiver awareness, learning, and empowerment. So Clayo, would you share more details about the program? What to expect, what topics are covered and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a great program. So thank you again for having us here. Happy to share about it. But our SCALE program is really comprised of a few things. So it's an 8-week program that consists of psychoeducational webinars. So often these webinars, they will target managing difficult caregiving emotions. So things like how to manage anxiety, how to manage things like anger, sadness, all very common emotions that you will most likely experience as a caregiver. And we partner with mental health professionals with a company in North York. So they deliver those webinars. And then within those 8 weeks, you can also access free one-to-one counseling by telephone or group counseling by Zoom. So that's a pretty unique feature for caregivers that is available across Ontario, because oftentimes caregivers will reach out to us requesting some of those services. So being able to offer that has really been life-changing for many caregivers. Counseling isn't required. If you just want to watch the webinars, that is of course welcome too. But the program is really based on flexibility, because we understand at the end of the day, things come up as a caregiver, or, as we were talking about before, webinars are also recorded, so caregivers can watch them on their own time too. So you don't have to participate in the full 8 weeks. You can come and go as you like. So there's flexibility that way as well. But I just want to share my screen just to go over some of the topics as well, just so you can get a sense of what the program offers. So the program, we run it also twice a year. But that being said, you can also go onto our website, as you've shared, and you can also kind of do the program yourself. It's kind of like a self-guided, because what we have is we have all the weeks on the webpage, on our SCALE webpage. So this is kind of the first part of the program where in the first session, the first 4 weeks, we look at really unpacking the emotional experience of caregiving. So the facilitators will talk about what your caregiving journey is like, how caregiving stress affects you, as I said, how you can manage anxiety and anger, and then how to overcome sadness and guilt, really common caregiving emotions. But, you know, if you go on our website now, you can see pre-recorded webinars. And the great thing too about the program is the facilitators and mental health professionals, they provide tools, tip sheets, summaries, so things for you to work on as a caregiver. So during the program, when it runs, you get to work on this with the mental health professional. But when it's not running, you're of course welcome to come onto our website and to view the information yourself and see if it's something you're interested to do as well. So the second session is focus more on, you know, what you can do as a caregiver to promote your mental health and well-being, which is so important to not just prevent burnout, but also maintain your own mental health and well-being as a caregiver. So a lot of these topics are focused on becoming mindful, focusing on mindfulness. We talk about, you know, giving self-compassion, because as caregivers, you're constantly giving compassion for everyone but yourself. So being able to provide that to yourself is almost like a wake up in some senses to many caregivers and a step forward to looking after their own health and well-being. We talk about identifying their caregiving strengths, how to build resilience, and how they can get through, you know, stressful situations. And then of course, we also talk about self-care, and we kind of go above and beyond, you know, not just give ideas, but how, you know, that's always a how. Caregivers ask, well, I don't have time, you know, so often we break that down and we say, well, you know, these are some steps or these are some paths where you can start to include self-care. Because we know too, self-care can be a controversial concept for caregivers at times. So, you know, we like to frame it, it's really anything that brings you peace, a sense of peace, comfort, joy, even if it's just for a few moments, right? That's kind of the key. You know, a lot of people think of self-care and they think, oh, I have to dedicate an hour of my time, but that may not be the case. So we really break it down that way as well. So the next time our scale program is running will be in September. So I really invite anyone listening on this, or, you know, who will listen to this, to come check it out. It will start September 14th, and we have the registration button on the website, but it won't open until August. So just be mindful of that. But happy to send that out to you once the program registration is open. So yeah, it's a great program, definitely. Lots of positive feedback from caregivers. And it's a great place just for caregivers to kind of share those experiences, because I think often we think about, you know, that stigma caregivers have reaching out for help. So just caregivers coming to these webinars, and, you know, Jane and I have seen messages in the chat saying they're so grateful just to have this opportunity to connect and express these feelings, because they may not be able to do that within their current situation. So it's been wonderful to kind of see caregivers experience change that way for the better.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So just so a few things I want to touch on. So yes, definitely reach out as soon as the registration is open, so that we can share that in our community as well. A lot of benefits I'm seeing to all those topics for any parent and parent as well, a caregiver, however somebody identifies. So when they sign up for the 8 weeks, you're saying that they can come and go and sort of like at their own pace. So that means like if it takes them longer than 8 weeks, but they can still access the webinars, or is it only accessible during that time frame?
So it's accessible whenever, like even though it's not right now, they're more than welcome to go on, view the recordings, the sheets. But when it is running during the 8 weeks, so starting in September, that's when, you know, the mental health professionals will be present and engaged. So, you know, often at the end of our live recordings, we'll do Q&A. So caregivers can then ask kind of the mental health professionals specific questions. And then of course we do have the counseling piece as well. So, the one-to-one is kind of great. Oftentimes we'll get very, very specific caregiving situations. So that's when we really encourage those caregivers to go one-to-one to counseling, because you can get 2 sessions of one-to-one counseling to kind of work through that specific situation that they're often experiencing. But the online group counseling is just a great place to kind of connect, share those experiences, and kind of work through the lessons from that weekly webinar. So both options are available. Of course, you're welcome to do both group and one-to-one, but it is a preference, but it isn't required as well. So as you can see, these are the past facilitators.
Yes.
And one of them may change, but they all have their Masters of Social Works or psychotherapy. So they do have that professional background, and many of them have their own caregiving experience as well, which is great because that really connects, obviously, the audience to the facilitator too.
100%. Yeah. And is there a fee for the program?
It's entirely free. So I get that question asked a lot, but yeah, it's 100% free.
Well, sure. I mean, when people see, one-on-one counseling or even group counseling, you might assume that there's a fee associated with that. So so I wanted to make that, clear.
No, I appreciate you asking that. And we do have a frequently asked questions too about the program on our webpage to scroll through, but absolutely going back, if they can just make it for 1 week, then that's totally allowed. It's not a fixed program. You can come in and out whenever you like. It's just very flexible.
Well, it sounds fantastic and free. So if you're watching, check it out on the website. And if you have questions about it, beyond their FAQ page, you can definitely reach out to, right?
Absolutely. Questions.
I mean, you hit a lot of topics that we hear in our community too. So like specifically, even Jane mentioned it about the isolation, that they feel invisible sometimes, and oftentimes feel overwhelmed. So, I mean, what advice would you share and from your own, I guess, work, and then specifically how the OCO can help those people with those?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially during COVID, that isolation has been really increased. And that's something I've noticed just talking with caregivers as we try to find, what type of supports may be best for them. And often it is, a driving reason they're reaching out for help is because they're lonely or they're isolated. The services that they did have coming in for their care recipient were just cut off because of COVID, which made it obviously much more overwhelming. So I think, COVID has had a big impact on that. But, the best advice we give caregivers who are often feeling lonely is, let's help you find a community where you can, express this, where you can meet other people that are in a similar situation as yourself. Because oftentimes that loneliness will come from, people within their own support circle not understanding the situation, whether it's family or friends, or just having a hard time finding ways to connect with the people in their life that, used to be very supportive, but now it's very different once they're in a caregiving role and they're trying to find ways to relate to that. So, through OCO, there's different sources of supports for that. So it could be peer support, as Jane mentioned, our great peer support programs. We have the group and the one-to-one. But also too, we try to find local supports within their community. So through our helpline and through our staff that work within the helpline to really help caregivers engage with their local supports. Maybe there's already a community where they're living in Ontario that we can engage them in. But I think another great opportunity we've done at OCO is we try to really, as Jane said, listen to the caregivers' voices and integrate that, not just within our website, but our programs. So everything we do is, is co-created with caregivers. So just being able the opportunity to express yourself. We had one caregiver work on a webpage with us who said being able to share her story was life-changing. So just being able to open up and share that experience really helped with that isolation and knowing that they're not alone. And then in regards to feeling overwhelmed, that's another tough one too. And one that we often try to say is, let's kind of figure out what you're needing right now. If you're kind of going into burnout, maybe we need to find some more stronger supports, or if you feel like you want to prevent that, let's look at some needs that maybe we can look at prioritizing self-care. But we do have other options for if they are becoming very overwhelmed. They can either work internally with us, or they can go to our SCALE program and seek counseling, or within our own organization, we can also provide, different one-to-one types of supports. So it's just about really working with the caregiver to identify those needs and finding kind of, well, what's making it challenging for them to feel overwhelming, so that we can point them in the right direction.
That's great. Thank you. So I have a question from that was submitted from a community caregiver. They say, I have experienced caregiver burnout and I'm now in a better place. What would you suggest for maintaining my mental health to prevent burnout again? I'm sure this is covered in your, because I know I saw when you were listing your SCALE program, so it looked like you were definitely talking about that. And
that's $1 million question,
isn't it? Just give me the magic potion.
Yeah, I was talking with one caregiver and they're like, we just need to invent a pill to prevent burnout. Like a
magic pill. But it doesn't exist. So of course the challenge is, it's hard. I think burnout in caregiving is inevitable. It will happen, but I think what we try to do is build resilience. So, if you do come across a stressor, perhaps it isn't 5 step backwards, maybe it's 2 step backwards, like you slowly build on the strength to build your own resilience and able to cope with it in a better way. Because I know working with caregivers, burnout comes in roller coasters and really depends on the role. But I think the best thing that caregivers can do to maintain that is to continue to prioritize themselves and their needs, right? So a lot of the times caregivers will say, oh, I'm good, I'm just gonna, slowly stop, doing the one thing that maybe they enjoy. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's going out for a walk. They start to do that less and less and less, but they really have to, continue it and keep continuing that. So finding, what it is that they enjoy. And again, it could be a few moments. Oftentimes caregivers say, oh, I can't leave the house. But if that's the case, open up your window, maybe listen to some nature sounds, see what's around. So the first thing is, don't stop prioritizing your own needs or that self-care. And then the second thing is don't be afraid to also continue to seek out professional support. So, if you are seeing a counselor, keep seeing that counselor. Maybe it's not as frequent, but you're still checking in with them. Or, if you did one of our programs like SCALE, do it again, do it as a check-in or something like that. Or if you're seeing in a peer support program, keep checking in with them. It's just so important to kind of keep prioritizing that, but that's often the hardest part because I think we all have a challenge with that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder too about just part of that process is actually just recognizing the signs that you are heading towards burnout, and then over time catching them earlier and earlier, maybe. I know that sounds, easy to, it's not always Black life isn't always like in a nice step-by-step formation, but just being able to recognize the signs like, okay, you know what, I need to prioritize myself more.
Yeah, something we should probably share if you are sending out links and whatnot to folks is we have animated video that we co-created with some caregivers last year. It's on our YouTube channel. Okay. So we could provide you with the link to that. And it's like a 3-minute animation about, promoting your own mental health and what kind of supports you might need when to seek. And we do cover kind of like signs of burnout and when you might need certain kinds of help and things to do to boost your wellness. And one of those things is getting out in nature when Clayo said, even open a window and listen to birds, or just sit out somewhere where there's greenery. It can really make a little bit of a difference, even if it's just quick. But it's a fun, quick little animated video I would encourage people to check out.
For sure. Yeah. If you send me the link, and I can always drop it in the comments, and I can also share it in our private groups too. I think it sounds like a great resource to remind people, right? Sometimes we just need a little reminder sometimes when we're busy, caught up in our to do. Excuse me for taking a sip like that right in the middle of my sentence. So I'm just checking our live feed. Lots of nice comments that we'll get to. I'm just looking at the time. I was like, oh, it's 12:54. So I'm going to jump to our next question and maybe give you a moment to share, because you did mention the webinars that you put on, and like just the amazing amount of supports and resources you offer. Is there anything that's really memorable that you want to highlight that people check out? And then anything upcoming? I mean, we know that the scale is upcoming, and that's a big deal. And I just want to also mention that I'm glad you said that, Clayo, about taking it again, because that was a question I was going to ask and I had forgotten. So is it something that people can take again? Yeah, for sure. Thumbs up.
Yeah, well, over the last 2 years, we've done so many wonderful webinars. It's hard to pick a favorite. Many of them are memorable. We've got to meet quite a few wonderful subject matter experts and caregivers themselves, who are the most expert in this role, that joined some of our webinar panels. But we did do one in May that was really fun on boosting your wellness through nature. Tacking onto that concept. We had a physician who has really advocated for getting out into nature and has created like the park prescription program, which started out in BC. It's now available in Ontario, where providers can get tools that they can share with their patients around how to boost your wellness through nature. And in some cases, there may be Parks Canada, passes and that sort of thing. So I would say check out that webinar. That was kind of fun. Check out our webinar for many, many, many topics and see what resonates with you. Your audience might, in particular, find the series we did on nonviolent compassionate communication and self-empathy skill building quite relevant. We had a wonderful facilitator, Marianne Little, who's an expert in that, present for 3 webinars. And so I would say that one was quite memorable. And then I'd like to plug an upcoming webinar, our next one, which will be July 21st at noon. It is on journaling and using journaling for self-healing. We have a caregiver. She was ALS, a myotrophic lateral sclerosis caregiver to her husband, and that's what got her through in many ways. So she's written a book on how to guide people into learning the art of journaling, and we'll have anyone who registers will learn how they can become eligible to win one of her books as a draw prize. So even if you can't join, you can still get that opportunity and the follow-up recording. And I just encourage you to visit our site. It's in the slider. When you go onto our homepage, you can click there and it'll take you to Eventbrite to register. So yeah, and then I'd also like to encourage people to sign up for our e-newsletter that comes out monthly, because then that helps you to be informed about everything that's coming up.
Okay, awesome. I'm just going to share that event. That sounds really interesting, journal writing. I'm going to share that in the comments. And Clayo, did you want to add anything, or does that cover?
No, I know we're pressed for time, so.
No. Okay, so let's let people know how they can reach you. If they want to get in touch with the OCO, if they want to join, they want to learn, they want to connect with other caregivers, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do is if you have internet connection, I'm sure everyone today does, you're on Facebook, visit our website. We do have the number for the helpline, but also there's a number to reach staff if you wanted to connect with any of us. There below, our email is info@ontariocaregiver.ca. If you're on this site, you can also click the Get Involved tab, and that will give you more information about other ways to stay connected with us. One of those ways is you might want to volunteer with us. Currently, we have our one-to-one mentor program. That's one way that we love to always keep introducing new caregivers into that training program. It's a quick way to train to become a mentor. We are actually in need of mentors with past caregiving experience caring for children with complex needs. So there might be someone in your audience who might be interested in doing that, and if so, click on fill out an application, and we'd love to meet you. Caregiver Voices, that's our caregiver advisory panel. You can join that, and every so often we share resources, or we may share a question where we're looking for feedback from caregivers for their advice, their experiences. So that's another great place to join and stay connected and give us your opinions. So yeah, and then social media, of course. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Stay connected many ways as possible.
Well, that's perfect. It sounds like the website is definitely the go-to. So I'll encourage everyone to visit the links in the chat. And then if you have any further questions beyond that, then Jane just let you know how to learn more, get involved, and reach out. Well, our time is up for today. So thank you to you both so much. Such a great conversation. And like I said, let us know when the registration is open for the upcoming SCALE program in September, and we will share that with our community. Snack and Chat is on summer vacation, so this is our last episode until September. We will be coming back, but at a slower pace. So if there's a topic that you are interested in hearing more about, if you have an idea for Snack and Chat or other content that you're interested in learning more about, then for sure let us know at events@adoptforlife.com. In the meantime, we have plenty of Snack and Chats in our video library that we will be sharing our best of over the summer. So you can always visit us on replay whenever you miss us. But until then, enjoy your summer, take care of yourselves, and bye for now, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.